last month, the Pentagon released a long-awaited report into unexplained aerial phenomena, or UFOs. It neither confirmed nor rejected the idea that we are not alone. Walkley Award-winning journalist Ross Coulthard has spent the last 2 years investigating the history of UFO sightings and government cover-ups, and he joins us now. Ross, I'm full fascinated by all this. When you told people you were writing a book about UFOs, what was that reaction like?
A lot of people said to me, are you sure you want to do this? And I think it's because you're right. There's a big taboo. There's a stigma associated to this subject that I think is largely unwarranted. Yes, there are some crazy people who think that they've been abducted by UFOs, but I think that there's also a real phenomenon. And the Pentagon, no less, the US Defense Department, has actually formally admitted that this is real. In that report that you referred to, it told the Congress, the US Parliament, if you like, that it had investigated 144 incidents since 2004, which were sightings by US fighter pilots and other aviation personnel, and they couldn't explain, even though they looked seriously and investigated all of these incidents, they couldn't explain 143 out of the 144 cases. There's a genuine mystery there. There are objects intelligently controlled, manoeuvring at speeds and manoeuvres, if you like, far, far, far beyond any known human technology. And the Pentagon, no less, has admitted it's real.
Ross, we have our own history of UFO sightings here in Australia. Can you take us back to one of the most famous incidents, the Westall High School in Victoria in 1966? Can you run us through what happened that day? And do you believe, and what do you think kids and teachers really saw?
Well, your program's actually done a lot to promote this issue and make public awareness of it, I know. The Westall story in April 1966 is probably one of the world's most intriguing UFO UAP sightings. We use that word UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, to try and remove the more loaded term UFO. But over 200 kids, adults, local residents, school teachers, looked up in broad daylight at this school in suburban Melbourne and saw 3 elliptical metallic disc-shaped objects hovering over the school ground. And what's fascinating is I thought when I went into this, I was going to be able to disprove it. I went in thinking this is rubbish. How could 200 kids see an object like this in broad daylight and it not be on the front page of every newspaper in the country? And the more I investigated, the more, and I'm reluctant to say this because journalists don't believe in cover-ups, but the more I investigated, the more I've come to believe there was a deliberate cover-up by people in our defence forces at the time. And one of the key breakthroughs for me was persuading a school teacher, a former school teacher by the name of Andrew Greenwood, to go public with what he had happened to him. 2 guys turned up on his doorstep. 2 weeks after the incident, he'd spoken briefly to the Dandenong newspaper, told them what he'd seen. That night, he gets a knock on his door telling him there's an Air Force guy and a guy in civilian uniform, and they're telling him, don't talk any more about what you saw, because if you tell any more about what you saw, we will tell the education department that you're a drunk and that you will lose your job as a school teacher.
So he was threatened. He was threatened by the government.
He really was. And I've tried to get to the bottom of this. I've actually looked for government files on the subject. And this is where the cover-up gets even more intriguing, because I have a source who's privately told me he knows his dad wrote the report. There was a secret report written into this incident for a government department called the Department of Supply, which is now part of the Department of Defence. And my source witnessed his dad preparing that report. And he says his father was very shocked and rattled by what he saw and reported on. But the report itself has disappeared from government files. It's not there. And it's interesting because when I was in the States, I was filming for a documentary in the United States a few weeks ago, and I talked to American Defense Department people, and they said to me, one of the most interesting UFO cases in the world is the Westall 1966 UFO incident. And just in case people out there think that this might be some secret US technology, I actually think it might be. But the problem we've got for that explanation is the US has formally denied in that report that you talked about to the Congress, it has formally denied that this is American technology, that these weird, intelligently controlled objects are not something American, and they're very likely not Russian or Chinese. That's a genuine mystery. And for the first time, the world's most powerful military has formally acknowledged this is real.
Well, you clear it up, Ross. Has it happened? Have we been visited? That's a yes or a no I need.
I don't know. We
Right.
certainly are being visited by something that is apparently not human, which
Yeah.
is intelligently controlled. How's that?
There we go. That's good enough
That's
for
a
me.
very good answer.
Ross Coulthard's new book is called In Plain Sight, an investigation into UFOs and impossible science. Ross, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ross.
Always a pleasure to talk to you guys.